Welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever caught yourself wondering why our modern world seems to be facing, just an endless barrage of interconnected global crises? Well, today we're taking a pretty profound step back. We're going to look at the absolute big picture through the framework of universal human values. It's this genuinely fascinating lens that bridges the deepest, unspoken rules of the universe right down to the hard, statistical realities of our everyday lives.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the concept that existence is coexistence, move on to the four orders of nature, take a look at the human disconnect, check out the symptoms of global crises, and finally wrap up with achieving right understanding.
All right, Section 1. Existence is coexistence.
Now, the source materials suggest that if we're going to fix our massive problems here on Earth, we first have to understand the fundamental rules of the universe itself. And the core definition here is existence as coexistence. What this basically means is the universe isn't just some random scattering of isolated objects. Instead, every single unit is submerged together in what the text calls space or shunya. And because they all share this exact same space, they naturally function in this state of continuous, mutually fulfilling harmony. So synergy isn't actually something we have to invent, it's literally baked right into existence. So within this space, the framework tells us everything falls into two fundamental categories. First, you've got material units. Think of things like rocks or water. These are temporary. Their role is just to physically react, simply recognizing and fulfilling their basic physical properties. But then there's consciousness, and this is continuous. It doesn't just blindly react. It has the potential for knowing and assuming. This means it can learn, reflect, and ultimately make choices. And honestly, this leap from just temporary material stuff to conscious choice is the absolute pivot point for our entire global situation.
Moving right along, Section 2. The four orders of nature.
Let's zoom in from the vastness of the universe right down to our own planet. And this brilliantly illustrates how these material and conscious units actually show up in reality. Nature on Earth falls into four distinct orders. You have the physical order, stuff like soil and metal, operating on basic composition and decomposition. Then, the bioorder, plants and trees, which adds the activity of respiration. Next up is the animal order, which introduces a basic level of consciousness driven by selecting and tasting. But then look at the human order. We have this highly advanced capacity to imagine, analyze, and unlock a totally unique potential for perseverance, bravery, generosity, and true understanding.
But here's the really fascinating takeaway. For those first three, the physical, bio, and animal orders, their harmony is entirely automatic. They participate in the planet's broader cycles without a single ounce of conscious effort. The soil feeds the plant feeds the animal eventually returns to the soil. It's like a perfectly oiled machine. It just works flawlessly.
Which brings us to Section 3, the human disconnect.
So, if the rest of nature is existing in this perfect automatic harmony, where exactly do humans fit into the picture? Well, because we possess that advanced consciousness, that incredible ability to actually choose, our harmony isn't automatic. We can choose to operate on what the framework calls animal consciousness, which in humans manifests as a drive to exploit, living in constant fear, and obsessing over dominating nature just for consumption. Or, on the flip side, we can elevate to true human consciousness, and that is rooted in trust, coexistence, and mutual prosperity.
So, the crucial point is how this mindset actually dictates our actions. Right now, society is largely operating on a really flawed assumption, the idea that nature is just a resource for profit. And that traps us in that animal consciousness, where our ultimate goals are essentially just sensual pleasure and accumulation. Logically, this directly breeds inhuman conduct. When our foundational understanding is flawed, our whole society becomes based on exploitation and deprivation, rather than mutual fulfillment.
Okay, Section 4. Symptoms of global crises.
We are pivoting sharply here from philosophical frameworks to cold, hard, statistical reality. Because, as you might guess, this inhuman conduct leaves a massive, measurable footprint. Just take this number, 400 parts per million. For the last 650,000 years, global atmospheric CO2 stayed relatively stable around 300 ppm. But human activity, driven by that exact mindset of endless consumption we just talked about, has now pushed us well past the 400 mark. And the source status shows this is directly fueling unprecedented heat waves and pushing us toward critical climate tipping points.
It's not just our relationship with nature that's broken. Our relationship with each other is fundamentally fractured too.
Take a look at global federal spending. A staggering 54% of tax money is spent on the military, literally preparing for war and domination. Less than half goes to actual human and physical resources. I mean, wow, this is the glaring ultimate symptom of a society that's basically living in constant fear.
We see the exact same pattern when we look at resource management. Let's use water insecurity in India as an example. Humans there are extracting a massive 230 cubic kilometers of groundwater every single year. Almost a third of the groundwater blocks are already semi-critical or overexploited. And if this indiscriminate extraction continues, which again is born from that wrong assumption that nature is infinitely extractable, 60% of these aquifers are projected to be in critical condition by 2028. It's a rapid, cascading crisis.
But perhaps the absolute most tragic symptom of all is this number right here. 1.3 billion tons. Out of all the food produced globally every single year, roughly a third of it is simply lost or wasted. The source makes this crystal clear. Global hunger is absolutely not a result of overpopulation or some lack of natural abundance. Nature, it turns out, provides plenty. Hunger exists because food is treated as a resource for profit. It's a symptom of human greed.
Let's turn to our final segment, Section 5, Achieving Right Understanding. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this incredibly candid quote from scientist Gus Spieth. He points out that our top environmental problems aren't actually biodiversity loss or climate change, they are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to fix those, we don't just need better technology, we need a fundamental spiritual and cultural transformation. And, as he bravely admits, scientists just don't know how to engineer that. We need a whole new approach.
Well, the Universal Human Values Framework actually provides a structured path for that exact transformation, but it has to start from within. Step 1 is achieving right understanding in the self, which is what secures internal, continuous happiness. That then naturally flows outward into Step 2, building trust and respect in our relationships, creating mutual happiness. And finally, that manifests in Step 3, the right utilization of physical facilities, allowing us to shift from exploiting nature to experiencing mutual prosperity with it.
Let's move to and see how this builds into real-world action. When we actually operate with this right understanding, our daily participation across all four orders becomes crystal clear. For the physical order, our job is to ensure a conducive environment and maintain its constitution. For the bio order, we maintain and protect its seeds. For the animal order, we ensure safe environments and maintain their breeds. And for the human order, our greatest responsibility is to facilitate education and right understanding, what's called sanskar, for continuous happiness in the next generation.
We're going to wrap up this explainer with a pretty provocative question taken directly from the source material's own self-reflection prompts. Take a hard look at your own daily routine and ask yourself, are you interacting with nature and the people around you for mutual fulfillment? Or are you operating on assumptions that are just driving you toward endless consumption? The math, as we've seen today, shows us the latter is entirely unsustainable. True harmony has to start with an upgrade to human consciousness. Thanks so much for joining me to explore this profound framework today.